The four-way test. The rotamen is overrides for the four-way test. The things we think, say, or do. First,
is it true?
Second,
is it fair or concerned?
Third,
will we benefits?
Fourth,
will we benefit or concerned?
Thank you. Please be seated. The Rotarian song. May we have BP Pat lead us to sing the Rotarian song.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, life spells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is long on land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, he brought his most who served us best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, life spells Rotary.
Thank you, PP Pat.
Welcome.
Introduction of visiting Rotarian and honorable guest. May we have Rotarian me.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
We have one visiting Rotarian and one visiting guest today. The visiting Rotarian is Joanna. And the visiting guest is Joanna's husband, Baldwin.
Thank you, me. Welcome visiting Rotarian song. Joanna, please stand. May we have PP Pat years to sing the Rotarian song.
Okay.
Guests of Rotary, we greet you. Oh, guests of Rotary, we greet you. We want you to feel the friendship is real. We are glad you're here today. So take back home a bit of cheer. Regards from all the fellows here. And one once more, you are near our door. Come again, Rotarian, come again.
Welcome.
Present time.
Hello everyone, happy Lunar New Year, and quite happy this year, so it means that I gonna reach my end later, maybe 5 months later. Let's move on. So, thanks Max and Jessica, we have upgraded G2 informal meeting in Miaoli. So we visit Max and Jessica's special warehouse? Museum, I corrected it, special museum. So thank you. Let's move on, okay. And thank you everyone to join the New Year party hosted by the DG and helped by the Marathon Club. We had a great time that day, so that's my part. Thank you.
Secretary time. Okay, we're gonna have the board meeting after the regular meeting today. So the board member, please reserve your time to attend. Okay, we are going to our main program.
Yes, I have the honor, but actually I couldn't take the credit because we should give the credit to Joanna. So that's the reason we have the honor to invite a very important senior manager from a very important company in this world, this moment. Yeah, people say that why Taiwan is not so important at this moment because of TSMC, and why TSMC can survive or have a lot of achievement in the world now. I have to credit to the Asml, ASML, this company, and we have the chance to invite Mr. Baldwin, who is the senior manager in Asml, nearly 2 decades working in Asml. And Mr. Baldwin, next page, is graduated from Leiden University in Netherlands, which is a very, very old, very, very well, good reputation school, and his major is in physics. Wow, that's something we don't know, so we're trying to catch up his set today to talk about all the new scientific information. And I have the chance to understand that Mr. Baldwin's hobby and what he like doing in his free time is to use the 4x4 vehicle to cruise. And I heard Joanna and Baldwin, they trying to they join a Rotary event. They joined the event to buy a very good quality used car and drive the car, 4x4 cars, from Netherlands to Africa.
Oh my
Gambia. To Gambia. It's around 700 kilometers. 7,000 kilometers. Then drive later with all Rotary friends, and they donate the car to the Gambia people. 5 cars. Wow. So it's a really a good adventure. But today we like to know more about Asml and TSMC. So shall we have a good applause to welcome Mr. Baldwin?
We need to switch laptop.
So when we are prepared, Joanna, did I miss anything to introduce Mr.
No, I
Baldwin?
think you did great.
Thank you.
Yeah, how did you two meet?
How did we meet? At a school party from Baudrijs Tilburg.
Wow, Leiden.
Not in Leiden, no, we live in Eindhoven, which is in the south part of the Netherlands. And Baudrijs children, they were at that time 10 and 8 years old. And I met him at the school. He was there with his children at the Christmas party at school.
Good to know that.
And we've been happy ever since. So I can recommend you to take someone you love and to take her to a place like Taiwan, where you're surrounded by many people who are also very nice and very, very helpful. And it's a great experience for the two of us, for both of us and for our relationship.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay, so let me try to give you a little bit of introduction into the trends in the microchip industry, in which ASML plays an important role, as you know, and in which Taiwan plays a leading role on a worldwide basis. ASML is a company that makes machines to make chips. We were founded in 1984. 11 years later, we had an IPO, and we're listed today on the Amsterdam Exchange and Nasdaq in New York. Today, all of the world's top chip makers are our customers. So TSMC here in Taiwan, but also Samsung in Korea, Intel in the United States, SMIC in China, they all are our customers. Last year we had 14 billion euros of sales worldwide. For that we needed 28,000 employees worldwide. Almost half of the people are in research and development, because development of these equipment is crucial to the progress of the company. We have more than 120 nationalities at ASML, so almost every country in the world that has a university education has people working in ASML. And here in Taiwan we're also big, 2,500 people working here in Taiwan in support of TSMC in manufacturing a part of our equipment as well. Lithography is what we do. And lithography is a Greek word where composed of two Greek words, lithos, which is stone, and graphine, which is writing. So it's writing on the stone. And that is what we do. We write the design of the chips onto the wafer, which is a crystalline stone-like material. The story of ASML begins in 1984 with only 31 people, an attitude that they can make it happen, and it was a lot of work to get it off the ground. There were times when the company was almost bust. It didn't have a lot of money in the beginning, but already very early on, TSMC was among the launching customers. The relationship was because Philips founded the ASML lithography, and Philips was also a founding partner to TSMC. So the relationship between ASML and TSMC is already a very old one. If you look at ASML today, it's quite different. All of this is ASML today. We have 20-story high tower in which our CEO is sitting here on the top floor. We have a large factory for the old systems. We have a new large factory for the EUV systems, and we continue to expand. There's always building going on because we're a growing company. And today we are the biggest high-tech company in Europe, with a market capitalization of more than 200 billion euros of total value. So we are present everywhere where customers make chips, which means we have, well, obviously a lot of presence in Europe, that's close to home, but we're also very big in the United States, and we have a lot of presence here in Asia, where where our biggest customers today are in Taiwan, in Korea, the US, and that's where most of our revenue goes these days. ASML is a company that helps propel Moore's Law. And you heard Essen introduce the company, Asml. And these two characters are the characters of Gordon Moore's name. That's no surprise because many companies do, they make a link. But ASML and Moore's Law are tightly linked. And let's have a look at Moore's Law. What was Moore's Law? Moore's Law was, in 1965, Gordon Moore observed that the number of transistors, number of switches on an integrated circuit was going up very rapidly. And he says, well, the number of transistors on the chip doubles every year. He made that prediction here in 1965 based on a couple of data points. We're 50 years later today, and the trend has continued ever since. And I don't know if you've ever heard about the famous riddle of a gentleman who asks for a reward and says, well, to the Chinese emperor. And he said, well, give me 1 grain of rice on the first square of a chessboard, and 2 grains on the second, and 4 on the fourth, and 8 on the next one. If you go into a process of doubling and doubling, you end up with trillions of transistors on a device. And that's where we are today. These devices are extremely complicated and can do almost anything you can imagine. And the trend continues ever since that time. And we're able to do that because we make them smaller and smaller and smaller. If you look at the design of a chip, from one generation to the next, the design remains more or less the same, but you make it smaller. And by making it smaller, more of these chips fit on the same area. We write these chips on round substrates, which are thin plates of silicon, 300 millimeter in diameter. And with this shrink, these integrated circuits, these electrical devices, Obviously they get smaller. That was my first point, right? But because they are smaller, they need less power, because this needs more power than this. And because they are smaller, the signals have to travel a shorter distance, so they get faster. And because they are smaller, there are more chips that fit on a wafer, so they also become cheaper. So all at the same time, from generation on generation, you get smaller chips that need less power, are faster and cheaper, all at the same time. And you do that for 50 years on a doubling every generation. And then you build an industry of billions, and you build a company like TSMC is here today. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. Taking some slides from Mark Liu, TSMC's chairman, which he presented earlier this month. And he shows two examples of this performance. Just from one generation, 14 nanometers, to the next generation, 7 nanometers, smaller. Everything is getting smaller. And by making things smaller, one of their key customers, AMD, is able to make their processor double the performance or half the power. Huge, major steps moving forward. Or another example of another key customer, NVIDIA, of TSMC, who make accelerators for artificial intelligence data processing. That is high performance computing. The previous generation cost $11 million and had 25 of these racks. And obviously they consume a lot of power. The same performance can now be realized in one rack, $1 million. 1/10 of the cost, 1/20 of the power. So it is these kind of advancements that make it possible for the industry to grow. So let's have a look at how these chips are made, because it is a very complicated process to make a chip. It is not easy at all. There are 100 times you go through this cycle in making a chip. And you deposit a very thin layer of materials, like a layer of bricks in a building. You deposit a photosensitive material that you can illuminate light on and copy a pattern from a reticle onto a wafer. You develop the pattern, you etch the pattern from the photoresist coating into the film. You modify the surface of the wafer, you strip it, and you do this again. You do this 100 times. So layer by layer by layer, you build your device. In a cell phone, this is the chip, and the chip is made on a round wafer. And if we keep zooming in and keep zooming in and keep zooming in, you start to see the structures that are on this chip, and you start to see how it's built up. And we're now about 100 times zoomed in, and now you can see what I was trying to describe. All the layers of the chips are in here, and you see the patterns. The layers are made by different companies, but the patterns are made by ASML, and there are two key parameters important. One is the critical dimension of these features. How big are they, and can you do that very well? And the other one is how well can you place them, because as you can see, you need to put these on top of each other, and they have to fit, because otherwise the whole thing falls apart, you get shorts, you get non-functional devices. But two critical parameters. These chips have made a tremendous progress, and Intel used to be the biggest company in chips industry, and they know the industry very well. So let's see what they said about it. And they show a very interesting slide in here, where they say in the past decade we had high-performance compute in big data centers, and Intel was dominating the high-performance compute. Then we had 4G networks and cell phones. Intel didn't show the cell phones on here because they're not in the business. That's TSMC's business. TSMC is providing all of the chips in the cell phones. And at the edge, where all the things are, your phones, the stop lights, the cameras, everything in there, there's the Internet of Things, which is also an area where TSMC is very big. At this time, the data was brought to the compute, so these were relatively stupid, this network was not very capable, and most of the money was made here. But things are changing, because the computation is getting cheaper and cheaper, and the communication is not getting much cheaper. So today, computation is cheaper than communication, so it's better to bring the compute to the data rather than the data to the computer. So this is what's happening now. And this has major consequences. First of all, not directly related to this, we have artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is different than what Intel used to be good at. And all of the big data centers, the big cloud companies, are getting very big, such that they know better what is needed in their data centers than Intel does. So Amazon and Google and Facebook, Baidu, they all decide to make their own chips because they feel that they can do better than Intel. And these chips have to be manufactured somewhere. Well, guess where? Here at TSMC. Then we get the 5G network, which you must have heard of. The 5G network is much faster, but it can only be fast because it is intelligent. And intelligence means that you put high-performance compute capability in there. So 5G is growing, and TSMC is benefiting. And then we're going to move the compute to the data. So this Internet of Things, which used to be stupid, is now getting intelligent. It also gets high-performance compute capabilities. In a car, there are many chips in there which are increasingly more intelligent. And again, TSMC is benefiting. So where previously Intel dominated and TSMC was sort of supplying the rest, today TSMC is present everywhere in this chart. And you can see it also if you look at their revenue reports, because the areas that are growing are smartphones in the middle, high-performance compute, which is everywhere, and Internet of Things, which is on the right-hand side. Also interesting to note is that in the year 2020, TSMC's revenue of automotive went actually down because they didn't order chips. And I'll come back to that later. Because the impact of TSMC is huge. This automotive is only 3% of TSMC's revenue. But if the automotive ordering goes down by 7%, a big issue arises with automakers. That puts the whole supply chain under a microscope. Everyone is panicking. Even Biden gets involved, and the Taiwanese government gets involved to help TSMC prioritize and save the car industry. Only 3% of TSMC's revenue. Worldwide impact on the market. But the real money that TSMC makes is coming from these leading edge chips. And if you look at a slide from TSMC, they say it comes from high volume production, where they have half of the installed base of EUV machines in the world, and they run them harder than anyone else, so they even do 60% of the wafers. So they're really big. And it is a breakthrough, as they say. This is also from Mark Liu's presentation. He shows that we could make it with multi-patterning, very complicated multiple steps, but with a single step of EUV, you get a pattern that looks better, is better defined than with all of the steps before. So it's simpler and better. And with this EUV, and with a high adoption rate of EUV, TSMC is now in the lead. They are ahead of everyone else in the industry. They provide chips that no one else can make. And that is based on the EUV system that ASML has been able to supply to TSMC. These are big systems. They're as big as a bus. And let me quickly show you what the layout of the system is. So this is a system that puts the patterns on those round substrates. First, these are measured in order to put the pattern at the right place. Then they are exposed, the pattern is printed on the wafer, and that is an optical process in which a projection optics, a lens, projects an image which is on a reticle, and the reticle is illuminated with light that is reflected there, coming from a source in the system. And I'll show you a little video that shows all of this in action. This machine costs around 150 million US. So these are expensive machines, but they're complicated. In that machine we generate the light, and we generate light by heating a small droplet which evaporates and explodes into extreme ultraviolet light. We expose that with a very rapid movement of the stage, as you see happening here. Because exposing this whole wafer takes just 20 seconds. Because productivity is key, you have to go very fast. You see a complicated system. We do a scanning in sync between the reticle and the wafer to make sure that we get the right movement in the right place. Here you see the scanning process on the reticle, which is moving at a tremendous speed. This reticle is supplied to the system with all robotics everywhere. Here we bring the reticle into the system, which is entirely under vacuum. So the system there's no air inside. This is the reticle stage, and we swap these two reticles. Take the one in, the other out, and minimize the time between to avoid downtime. And here you see the scanning movement of the projection over here, and the measurement. And when the measurement is done, you swap these two. Now you can project this one, take out the old wafer, put in the new one. So it's all geared towards productivity at extreme precision. And to give you an idea about the precision of what we're talking about, I mentioned that this is a wafer of 300mm in diameters. The minimum dimension is 13 nanometers. Well, you don't know what 13 nanometers is. And the positional accuracy is even less. The nanometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter, of a millimeter, sorry. So let's magnify this by 1,000,000 times. If we make the 300mm wafer 1,000,000 times bigger, it is as big as, it covers all of Taiwan. Yeah? If we make 13 nanometers 1,000,000 times bigger, it is 13 millimeters. And the positional accuracy is 1.1 millimeters. So what we do in this machine is, imagine printing all of Taiwan with lines that are this wide as your thumb, with an accuracy of 1 millimeter. And we do that in 20 seconds. 20 seconds later, another one, and another one, and another one. So it's quite amazing what is possible. Obviously, we don't do this on this scale, but we do it on a nanoscale of the wafers. So I try to give you a few highlights. Both ASML and TSMC are leaders in technology. We have a strong and long-standing bond, already going back to the earliest days of both ASML and TSMC. Today, we're both playing a very important role in the continuation of Moore's law, and with the EV technology, this bond is only getting stronger. Thank you. Any questions?
Reserve some time for any question that you can see Asml's manager in our row anytime. Yeah. I'm surprised that there's so many workers in Taiwan because Asml's company. So what's their major job here in Taiwan?
What's the major job of engineers in Taiwan? That's a very good question. We have three major activities, and they're all they're roughly equal size. One major activity is what I mentioned here, is support of TSMC. Support in making sure that these machines get installed. It's a lot of work to put this machine together and to make it run. Making sure that they keep running, maintaining them, and that any issues get resolved. That's one part, customer support. The second big activity is that we have in Linkou, we have a factory. In that factory, we manufacture it's not shown on here. In the factory, we manufacture measurement equipment, and we manufacture measurement equipment for all of ASML. And we have a second factory in Tainan. In Tainan, we have a factory that builds electron microscopes. And an electron microscope allows you to see the pattern on the wafer that we saw in the beginning of the video. So a very precise view of the pattern. So those three activities we have. Support of TSMC, factory in Linkou, another factory in Tainan.
So,
yeah, I'm curious. Can you find enough engineers in Taiwan to work for your company? And also, are our young engineers well trained in school before they apply the job in your company?
There is clearly a tension in the job market today for engineers, because it is going very well with the industry, and ASML is growing, but so is TSMC, and along with ASML, all of our peer companies are also growing. So it is difficult to attract good people. Fortunately, if you are a leading company, you have something special that appeals to people. And one of the things that I noticed being here in Taiwan is that almost everywhere I mention that I work for ASML, people know the company and they know the role we play. And that is also a very attractive for young people who want to join a leading company. So it is difficult, but for us a little bit easier than for companies that are not as well known.
May I jump in and keep asking? Maybe a little bit sensitive, but I'm pretty curious. Yes, we heard the TSMC and Asml story, but we know there is a very big chip manufacturing competitor in Korea and in China. So, what's your understanding to these two major companies? What their industry are going to develop in the future, according to your information?
I think for the industry, it is good that there is competition, because it keeps everyone on their toes. So it's for the better of the overall industry. If you look at the position today of TSMC here in Taiwan, they have more than 50% of the market for foundries, like in their market, and they're growing. So they're doing very well, and their market share is growing. So they're growing faster than the market. However, like I said, for the industry as a whole, it is good that there is competition and that you're not dependent on one supplier, but you can have multiple suppliers. And therefore, key customers of TSMC are also trying to make sure that the competition stays alive by also promoting our customers. And that is also recognized by the Korean companies that are investing big time in this industry as well.
Any further questions?
You were speaking English, but all this is kind of
quite eye-opening presentation for us. So let's say a TSMC plant would have about how many of these EUV in it?
Oh,
Probably hundreds.
sorry.
How many EUV machines?
Yeah, so we ship. We shipped last year. I think we shipped around 30. 30, and half of them went to Taiwan.
So I'm saying one single plant would have probably 10, because these are very expensive.
Easily. It's more like 30.
And I heard these are very, what do you call it, they use a lot of power, electricity power.
Yes.
So can you try to share with us, like, the amount of power they consume a day? Because the speed is processing is crazy.
So the it's true that this machine that we're looking at is consuming a lot of power, and it consumes a lot of power because we want to make it go fast. What we're doing today, together with our customers, we set these priorities, is trying to make sure that the power consumption doesn't grow from where it is today, but that the output increases, such that the power per unit is going down, and we can halve the power per unit, go to 50% of the power per unit moving forward. And exactly how much power we consume, I don't know, but
because we were told that TSMC plant could use quite as much power as a whole city.
That's possible. If that's what they say, it's probably true. It's probably true. Yeah.
Well, sorry, I just want to. I heard that the United States government will beat China company to purchase the Asml's UV machine.
Correct.
So
what's that? So it must because of that UV is a very potent techniques that are not allowed to spread too far away. But what's your thinking about that? One government stopped you to develop in certain area. What's your company's idea about this? That's the issue about the trade war.
When I joined ASML 20 years ago, the motto of the customer of the company was to continually support our customers' global competitiveness, and that is still true today. So we want to support all of our customers to the best of our abilities, but there is a clear boundary condition around that. ASML will never break the law. So if the law tells us we cannot supply to a certain country or to a certain customers, we will not do that. But it's not our choice. It is the choice of the governments that impose this restriction.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of questions I'd like to ask,
but I shouldn't occupy too many time here. So any further question Terry need to ask?
It's really a big topic for me, especially it's about technique. But I would like to know, how are you and TSMC ahead? How many years ahead as the life we're living now?
That's a bit of a difficult question. So in terms of, it's easiest to measure that in terms of the outputs of the chips from TSMC, and I showed how many transistors can be on a chip. On that dimension, TSMC is probably 1 to 2 years ahead of everyone else. As far as ASML is concerned with our technology, there is nobody who can supply EUV technology, and ASML has been working on it for 10 years. So we are the only supplier of that technology. So there is no dimension of saying, well, how far are you ahead? We are the only one, And as far as we know, there is no one else trying to develop the technology at this point.
So I'd like to know what's the biggest threat in your business?
I think the biggest threat is complacency. So the industry has come where it came by constant drive towards new technology, and that is a very tiring exercise. And there's a lot of people that are running constantly. Some fall in the process. But as you get, and we are where we're here because we kept running for 50 years. The biggest risk is that we feel we are ahead. Let's slow down.
It's like a marathon.
Yeah.
1 minute marathon.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a multi-man marathon. And it's, yeah.
So, any question? No. Go for it.
Thank you for the insightful talk. I just want to know, so you mentioned about the automobile parts are in short right now. So
yeah.
How is TSMC going to respond to that? Are they going to increase the production rapidly, or it's going to be difficult for a while?
You're asking a question for which I don't have any inside knowledge. But let me try to answer to the best of my abilities. According to my understanding, the shortage is not due to failure on the part of TSMC or the suppliers. The shortage is because the parts were simply not ordered. And what makes it worse is that the automotive people were not ordering parts, but you saw the big growth rates of 30% year on year. Everyone else was ordering parts. So they lost the slots in the production line, and they were filled and extended by other products. So they're now at the end of the queue. It's like you're waiting to check out. You say, well, you're going to go out, and you have to go all the way back at the queue. That's what happened. Well, I know that TSMC is trying to support all of their customers to the best of their abilities. So they're looking to increase the output of the factories, and there are ways there's always a possibility to increase the output a little more by starting more product, by making people do overtime. You can always increase a little bit. It was only 3% of TSMC's revenue, so they will do the best they can to catch up. But what I also know is that it will not go at the expense of everyone else. So it's not like you can give an advantage to one customer and say, well, you have to wait. You were in the front of the queue, but go back. That's not going to happen. So it's going to lead to more stress on the shop floor at TSMC.
So, sorry, I'm curious. Right now, Taiwan is doing pretty well.
Yes.
In this field. Do you think we still can keep the niche for many years? We can still take the lead. Will China take over?
You can keep the lead if you keep running. And this is an industry it is a big industry. And in an industry, big numbers always win. If you and I are competing, and I have 100 people working to develop something new, and you have 10 people working to develop something new, I will always win. TSMC is half of the market. So if they continue to invest in technology, they can invest as much money as everyone else. So if they continue to do that, they will always stay ahead. Now let's have a look at China, because there are 1.5 billion people in China. I don't know how many. So could China win? Well, with what they're currently doing, the capital investment of just one company, TSMC, is bigger than all of the investment in China. So not as it is going today, no. they're not able to overtake. They're not even able to catch up.
Good to know.
Buy your shares.
That's I know what I need to do in stock market. So once again, thank you.
It's always risky because if you look at the stock market, you can see that many people thought that already.
Yeah, that's right.
Such a pleasure. That's a souvenir.
Oh, thank you.
Shall we? I forgot that.
We're always making pictures.
That's all we do.
Pictures. We'll go with you, so.
One more. Thank you.
Shall we keep going?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Barton. Attendance report, may we have PP Sen.
Yes, Happy New Year. And thank you all to the speaker for his wonderful speech. Thank you. Let us know Taiwan still have hope because okay.
Taiwan is more than hope.
Okay. Attendance report. We have 24 Rotarian and visiting 1 visiting Rotarian and 1 guest. Totally attendance rate is 35%. Thank you.
Sergeant Arm report, may we have PP Path.
Okay, let me have today's Sergeant Arm report. A truly inspirational lecture. Thank you, Bowing, from Ming 1000. Next, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Bowing. Both TSML and ASML are incredible companies from Lu 1000. Next is, thank Mr. Bowing for the very informative speech. Happy Lunar New Year to everyone from Jim 1000. And the last one from our President Essen. So lucky and honored to have Mr. Bowing here today. Thank you.
Thank you, PP Path. What's coming? Next week 就是 HW Day， 然后由我们社长 Asml 邀请林威宇先生来为我们分享一下音乐治疗。Okay, this is the meeting today.
Thank you for all your attendance today, and I join the meeting today.